Alone, they sent radio signals into the darkness. They launched probes toward distant planets. They built telescopes that could see billions of light years away. But the universe never answered back until today. Admiral Park Do-yeon stood on the command bridge of the Tieback, humanity's first deep space carrier. The ship was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long. Built in secret over 20 years in the shipyards orbiting Mars, it was humanity's greatest achievement. A symbol of their determination to reach the stars. But right now, Do-yeon was not thinking about achievement. He was thinking about survival. On the main display screen, an alien vessel hung in space like a silver teardrop. It was beautiful in a strange way, its hull smooth and flowing, nothing like the angular military ships humans built. Lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that seemed almost musical. "Sir, they are broadcasting again," said Fleet Commander Yoon So-man. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and steady hands. Nothing ever seemed to shake her calm. Standard greeting protocols, according to our translation team. They call themselves the Velmorian Diplomatic Corps, representing something called the Galactic Council. Do-yeon did not respond immediately. He was reading a classified file on his personal display, one that only 12 people on Earth had ever seen. The file contained everything humanity's spy probes had gathered over the past 50 years. The probes had been launched in secret. Tiny machines no bigger than a coffee cup, designed to drift through space and watch. They had found the Galactic Council 30 years ago. They had watched them ever since. What they had seen made Do-yeon's blood run cold. The Council was old. Older than human civilization. They claim to represent 47 spacefaring species, united in peace and cooperation. They offered new members technology, medicine, and access to trade routes spanning the entire galaxy. It sounded wonderful. It sounded like a dream come true. It was a trap. The probes had documented everything. Species that joined the Council received amazing gifts at first. New power sources. Cures for diseases. Machines that could build anything. The new members celebrated. They thought they had found paradise. Then slowly, things began to change. The technology required Council technicians to maintain. Local engineers could not understand it. When something broke, only the Council could fix it. Trade agreements were signed that seemed fair but slowly destroyed local economies. Cultural exchange programs brought Council ideas and values. Pushing aside local traditions and beliefs, within 3 generations, the absorbed species forgot who they had been. Their languages faded. Their customs disappeared. Their peoples scattered across Council worlds, were working and living alongside dozens of other species, all equally lost. All equally dependent on the Council for everything. They called it integration. Do-yeon called it conquest without weapons, Admiral. So-man asked. They are requesting permission to approach. They say they come in peace. Do-yeon closed the classified file. He had memorized every word anyway. He knew what the Council was. He knew what they wanted. And he knew what he had to do. Tell them to leave, he said. So Min blinked. Sir? 2 words, Commander. Broadcast them on every frequency. In every language we know. Do-yeon turned to face the main screen. The alien ship sat there, waiting, so confident in its welcome. Go away. The message was sent. Simple, direct, final dot. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the alien ship's lights began flashing faster, a pattern that the translation team identified as confusion. A new transmission came through. The alien ambassador's voice smooth and pleasant, despite the strange clicking sounds underneath. Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding, the ambassador said. We are the Velmorian Diplomatic Corps. We represent the Galactic Council. We come offering friendship and go away, Do-yeon repeated. We have gifts, the ambassador continued. Technology that could advance your civilization by centuries. Medicine that could end all disease. We ask only for peaceful communication, a chance to go away. The ambassador's voice changed, confusion turning to something like hurt. This is unprecedented. No species has ever refused first contact. Surely you understand the benefits of I understand perfectly, Do-yeon said, breaking his pattern. I understand what you offer. I understand what you take. And my answer remains the same. Go away. Do not return. Silence filled the communication channel. The alien ship hung in space, its lights pulsing in what might have been shock or anger or fear. Then, slowly, it began to turn. Its engines glowed blue, and it moved away from Earth, picking up speed until it vanished into the darkness between stars. On the bridge of the Tibok, no one spoke. Finally, Salman stepped closer to Doyon. Sir, what just happened? We just made first contact with an alien civilization, and we told them to leave. The governments of Earth, the people, they will want to know why. Doyon turned away from the screen. They will know. When the time is right, everyone will know what the council really is. He walked toward the exit, then stopped at the door. But first, we prepare. Prepare for what? For when they come back, and they will come back, Commander. They always do. Far away, in the great chamber of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Thelix of the Velmorian species materialized before the assembled representatives. His bioluminescent skin, normally a calm blue, pulsed with shades of purple and red that indicated extreme distress. Port, commanded High Counselor Morith, an ancient being whose body was made of living crystal. Light refracted through him in rainbow patterns as he spoke. They refused, Thelix said. His voice was barely a whisper. The humans refused contact. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Holographic representatives of 47 species flickered and buzzed with surprise. Some translated Thelix's words for species that communicated through light or scent or magnetic fields. Refused? Morith repeated. That is not possible. No species refuses the council. We offer, I know what we offer, Thelix interrupted, forgetting protocol in his shock. I explained everything. Technology, medicine, trade routes, full membership in galactic civilization. They were not interested. Perhaps they did not understand, suggested another counselor, a being that resembled a floating mass of tentacles. Young species often have difficulty comprehending the scope of what we offer. They understood. Thelix's skin pulsed darker. They understood perfectly. Their military commander told me so directly before ordering me to leave their territory. Silence fell over the chamber. In 3,000 years of galactic history, nothing like this had ever happened. The council had welcomed hundreds of species into its embrace. Some had been eager. Some had been hesitant. But none had ever said no. High Counselor Morith's crystalline body rang with a deep tone that meant concern. This is troubling. A species that rejects integration presents complications. They could spread dangerous ideas to others. Independence, self-determination, resistance to unity. What do we do? Thelix asked. Morith was silent for a long moment. Then his body chimed with a new sound, one that had not been heard in the council chambers for a very long time. We wait, he said. We watch. And if necessary, we convince them that refusing the council is not an option. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Park Doyon stood at a window, looking down at the blue and green world below. 7 billion people lived there, going about their lives, unaware that humanity had just made the most dangerous decision in its history. But Doyon did not regret it. He had seen what the council did to species that accepted their gifts. He would not let that happen to Earth. Whatever came next, humanity would face it on their own terms, or not at all. 3 weeks had passed since the alien ship left Earth's solar system. 3 weeks of chaos, argument, and fear. The governments of Earth could not decide what to do. Some wanted to call the aliens back, to apologize, to accept whatever gifts they offered. Others supported Admiral Doyon's decision. Trusting the classified reports that had been slowly released to world leaders, the debate raged in every country, in every language, on every news channel. But while humans argued, the Galactic Council was not sitting idle. The high chamber of the council was a sphere the size of a small moon, floating in orbit around a star so old that Earth's sun had not yet been born when it first began to shine. Inside, representatives of 47 species gathered in their designated positions. Some physically present, others appearing as holograms projected across unimaginable distances. Today, the chamber was louder than it had been in centuries. "This is unacceptable," declared Ambassador Crix of the Mentari Confederation. His species resembled tall insects, their bodies covered in hard shells of deep green. No primitive species should be allowed to insult the Council in this manner. "I propose immediate intervention." "Intervention," responded Thelix, the Velmorian ambassador, who had been rejected at Earth. His skin glowed with cautious yellows. "The humans have done nothing aggressive. They simply asked us to leave." "Refusal is aggression," Crix insisted. "It threatens the stability of the Council. If word spreads that a species successfully rejected integration, others might begin to question their own membership." Murmurs of agreement rippled through part of the chamber, but other representatives remained silent, thoughtful, perhaps even curious about this strange species called humanity. High Counselor Morith raised one crystalline arm, and silence fell immediately. "Ambassador Thelix, you spoke with the humans directly. What is your assessment? Why did they refuse?" Thelix hesitated. This was the question he had been asking himself every moment since leaving Earth. "I do not know for certain, High Counselor, but I believe they knew about us before we arrived." "Impossible," Crix snapped. "They are barely capable of traveling between planets. How could they know anything about the Council? Their fleet commander told me directly that he understood what we offer and what we take." Thelix's skin darkened. Those were his exact words. "He knows something about our integration process that we did not tell him." The chamber fell silent. Representatives exchanged glances, or what passed for glances among beings with different numbers of eyes, or no eyes at all. "This is concerning," Morith admitted. "If the humans have been observing us, they may have formed incorrect conclusions about the Council's purpose." "Or correct ones," said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned. The speaker was a small being, barely visible among the larger representatives. Her name was Vex Toral, and she was a historian of the Mindari species. It's one of the first civilizations to join the Council thousands of years ago. "What did you say?" Crix demanded. Vex Toro did not flinch. "I said perhaps the humans have formed correct conclusions. Perhaps they have seen what we prefer not to discuss." "There is nothing to discuss," Morith said, his tone carrying a warning. "The Council brings peace and unity to the galaxy. That is our purpose. That is our achievement." Vex Toral said nothing more, but her eyes held questions that would not go away. On Earth, in a bunker hidden beneath the mountains of Gangwon Province, the United Earth Defense Council was holding its own meeting. President Lim Gian sat at the head of a long table. Surrounded by military commanders, scientists, and intelligence officers from every major nation, Dr. Bayuna stood before a large display screen, presenting data that most people in the room had never seen before. She was young for such an important position, only 34 years old, but her mind was sharp enough to cut through any problem. "Our observation probes have been monitoring the Galactic Council for 50 years, she explained. "What we have learned is deeply disturbing." The screen showed images captured by probes no larger than a human fist. Alien worlds, alien cities, alien beings going about their daily lives. The Council claims to be a voluntary union of species, working together for mutual benefit. This is technically true. No species is forced to join at gunpoint. Yuna paused. But force is not the only form of control. She changed the display. Now, it showed charts and graphs, tracking the development of newly integrated species over time. When a species joins the Council, they receive immediate gifts: advanced technology, medical breakthroughs, economic opportunities. For the first generation, everything seems perfect. She pointed to a rising line on the graph. Prosperity increases dramatically. Then she pointed to where the line began to fall. But by the second generation, problems appear. The gifted technology requires Council technicians to maintain. Local engineers cannot understand it because they were never taught how it works. Trade agreements that seemed fair begin to drain local economies. Cultural exchange programs flood local media with Council content, pushing aside native stories and traditions. The graph continued downward. By the third generation, the original culture is nearly gone. Languages die because children are taught council standard in school. Religious practices fade because council philosophy teaches that all beliefs are equally meaningless. Family structures collapse because council policies encourage individuals to scatter across different worlds. President Lim spoke for the first time. And what happens to those who resist? Yuna's expression grew dark. That is the most disturbing part, Madam President. According to our records, resistance is extremely rare. The process is so gradual that most species do not realize what is happening until it is too late. They wake up one day and find that they have forgotten who they used to be. Intelligence Director Quan Tai-Wu stepped forward. He was an older man, his hair gray, his face lined with decades of difficult decisions. We have identified 47 current member species, but historical records suggest there were once many more. What happened to them? Asked General Oh Jung-woo, the commander of Earth's orbital defense forces. Unknown, Quan admitted. They simply disappeared from council records. Their homeworlds are now listed as uninhabited. Their histories have been erased from council databases.
Nice.
Filled the bunker. Everyone understood what this implied. President Lim stood and walked to the window, looking out at the mountains. Snow was falling, white and pure, against the dark rock. Admiral Doyon made the right decision, she said finally. We cannot join the council. We cannot accept their gifts, and we cannot let them force us into anything. With respect, Madam President, General O said carefully, we may not have a choice. The council controls most of the galaxy. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. If they decide to take what we will not give, we have no way to stop them. Then we will find a way. President Lim turned to face the room. Every person at this table represents a nation that once fought for survival against impossible odds. We have faced conquerors before. We have faced empires that wanted to erase our identities and absorb our people. And we are still here. She walked back to her seat and sat down. Begin the defense program. Every resource we have goes into building ships, weapons, and defensive systems. If the Council wants Earth, they will have to pay a price so high that they will think twice before trying. Dr. Yuna raised her hand. Madam President, there is one more thing. I believe we should share what we know. Share it? With whom? Everyone. The Council, the member species, the entire galaxy. Yuna's eyes were bright with conviction. If the Council's power comes from species not knowing the truth, then the truth is our greatest weapon. Let everyone see what integration really means. President Lim considered this for a long moment. Then she nodded. Prepare the broadcast. Let the galaxy see what we have seen. Far away, in her small quarters aboard the council station, Vex Toral, the historian, sat alone in the darkness. She was thinking about questions that had troubled her for years. Questions about missing species and erased histories. Questions that no one wanted to answer. Perhaps, she thought, the humans were not the enemy. Perhaps they were the first species brave enough to say. What everyone was afraid to admit, the council was built on a lie. And lies, eventually, always come to light. 18 months had passed since humanity told the Galactic Council to go away. 18 months of preparation, construction, and growing tension. Earth was no longer the same world it had been before first contact. It had become a fortress. In orbit around the planet, hundreds of defense platforms floated like metal flowers. Each one carried weapons that humanity had developed in secret over decades. Weapons designed not for war with each other, but for war with the stars. Further out, past the moon, past Mars, a fleet of warships patrolled the darkness. The tieback was no longer alone. On the surface, factories worked day and night. Mines dug deeper than ever before, pulling metals and minerals from the earth to feed the hungry machines. Every nation had set aside their differences, at least temporarily. When faced with extinction, old arguments seemed small and foolish. Admiral Park Do-yeon stood in the command center of Orbital Station 1, watching as another diplomatic ship appeared at the edge of the solar system. This was the 12th attempt the Council had made to establish contact. Each time, they received the same response. Transmission coming through, reported Lieutenant Kong Murray, the young communications officer on duty. Same as before. They request permission to approach. They come in peace. They wish to discuss, send the standard response. Doyen interrupted. Murray nodded and typed the 2 words that had become humanity's official diplomatic policy. Go away. The alien ship waited for an hour, broadcasting messages of friendship and cooperation. Then, like all the others before it, it turned and left. In the high chamber of the Galactic Council, patience was running out. 12 delegations, Ambassador Crick said, his insect body trembling with anger. 12 times we have extended the hand of friendship. 12 times we have been slapped away like beggars at a door. High Counselor Morth's crystalline form rang with deep tones of concern. The humans remain stubborn. This is most unusual, is more than unusual. It is dangerous. Crick's turned to address the full chamber. Word has spread throughout the galaxy. Every species knows that a primitive civilization rejected the Council and faced no consequences. This makes us look weak. What would you have us do? Asked Thelix. Attack them? Destroy their world? That would make us look far worse than weak. I would have us remind the galaxy why the Council must be respected. Crix's voice dropped to a dangerous tone. Economic pressure. Cut them off from every resource in space. Let them starve in their little solar system until they come begging for integration. Morth considered this. A blockade. It could work without direct violence. It will not work, said a quiet voice. Vex Toral, the Mindari historian, stood in her Swall place at the back of the chamber. I have studied the humans. I have watched their broadcasts, read their histories, analyzed their behavior patterns. They are not like other species we have encountered. All species are fundamentally the same, Crick said dismissively. They all want safety, prosperity, and comfort. Deny them these things, and they will surrender. The humans have a different word for surrender, Vex Toral replied. They call it defeat. And in their culture, defeat is considered worse than death. They have a saying, give me liberty or give me death. They mean it literally. The chamber fell silent. Such thinking was strange to most council species, who had long ago learned to value survival above all else. Marith made his decision. We will establish an economic blockade. No council ship will trade with human territory. No council technology will be sold to human buyers. Let them feel the cost of isolation. The blockade began within days. Council ships took position in systems surrounding Sol, turning away any vessel that might be carrying goods to or from Earth. Independent traders, who cared nothing for politics and everything for profit, were warned that doing business with humans would result in permanent exclusion from council markets. On Kepler Station, a mining colony on the edge of the asteroid belt, Sergeant Haminseo watched the news reports with cold eyes. She was a soldier, 32 years old, born in Busan, and trained in the toughest military academies Earth had to offer. The blockade did not frighten her. It made her angry. They think they can starve us into submission, she said to her partner, Corporal Jun Yoon. Yoonji shrugged. She was younger than Minseo, 26, but no less tough. They don't know us very well, do they? No, they don't. Minseo turned away from the screen. Come on. We have work to do. Outside the station, construction drones swarmed like mechanical bees. They were building new mining platforms, designed to extract resources from asteroids that the Council had ignored for thousands of years. The blockade had cut off external trade, but the solar system was rich in everything humanity needed. It would take time and effort to tap those resources. But humans were not afraid of hard work. In fact, they were good at it. President Lim Guion addressed the United Nations General Assembly 6 months after the blockade began. The chamber was packed, every seat filled, every eye on her. The Galactic Council believes that isolation will break us, she said. They believe that without access to their technology and their markets, we will collapse and beg for integration. They are wrong. She activated a display behind her, showing charts of industrial production. Since the blockade began, Our manufacturing output has increased by 300%. Our mining operations have expanded to cover every major asteroid in the belt. Our shipyards are producing vessels at a rate the Council believes impossible. The delegates began to murmur. Some smiled. Others looked worried. We've achieved this, not despite the blockade, but because of it. The Council's pressure has united us as nothing else could. Every nation, every people, every person on Earth is working toward the same goal: survival, independence, freedom. Letting her words sink in. But we must be prepared for more than economic pressure. The Council will not accept our refusal forever. Eventually, they will resort to force. And when that day comes, we will be ready. Behind her, the display changed. Now it showed the fleet that humanity had built. Hundreds of warships, thousands of defense platforms, weapons systems that no one outside the military had ever seen. Let the Council come, President Lim said. Let them bring their fleets and their armies and their ancient power. We will meet them with everything we have, and we will show them that humanity does not kneel. As the chamber erupted in applause. Far away in her quarters on the Council station, Vex Toral was not applauding. She was working. Digging through historical records that had been buried for centuries. What she found made her hands tremble. The Council had not always been 47 species. Once long ago, it had been over 200. And those missing species had not been absorbed through gentle integration. They had been destroyed. Their worlds burned. Their people exterminated. Their very memory erased from history. The Council spoke of peace and unity. But underneath that beautiful mask was something darker. Something terrible, and the humans, somehow, had seen through the mask from the beginning. Vex Toral made a decision. She copied the files onto a secure data crystal, hiding it carefully in her belongings. Then she began to plan. If humanity could resist the Council, perhaps they deserved to know the full truth. Perhaps they deserved to know what they were really fighting against. Perhaps it was time for the lies to end. On Kepler Station, Sergeant Homincio finished her shift and looked out the observation window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Council was planning something. She could feel it in her bones, but she was not afraid. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together. And together, they were stronger than any ancient empire could imagine. The data crystal was small enough to fit in the palm of a hand. It contained information that could tear the Galactic Council apart. Vex Toral held it carefully as her small transport ship drifted toward the edge of Council space. She had told no one about her journey. She had filed false travel documents, claiming to be visiting archaeological sites in the outer territories. If anyone discovered the truth, she would be arrested. Perhaps worse. But she could not stay silent any longer. For 300 years, Vex Toral had served as a historian for the Council. It was her job to study the past, to document the great achievements of galactic civilization, celebrate the unity that the Council had brought to so many species. For most of that time, she had believed in her work. She had believed that the Council was good. Then she began to find the gaps. Historical records that ended abruptly. Species mentioned in ancient documents that appeared nowhere in current databases. Worlds listed as uninhabited that had once held thriving civilizations. At first, she thought these were errors, data lost over millennia of record-keeping. But the more she searched, the more she realized that the gaps were not accidents. They were deliberate. Someone had erased entire civilizations from history. And the only organization with the power to do that was the Council itself. Her transport ship crossed into neutral space. The region between Council territory and the human solar system. Here, no laws applied. Here she could send a message without being monitored. Her fingers trembled as she typed the address. She did not know if the humans would receive her transmission. She did not know if they would trust it. But she had to try. On Earth, Dr. Bayuna was working late in her laboratory when the alert came through. An encrypted message from an unknown source, carrying codes that indicated it originated from Council space. She almost deleted it. Such messages were usually attempts at infiltration, viruses disguised as communication. But something made her hesitate. The message header contained a single word that caught her attention: truth. She opened the message carefully. Using an isolated computer system that could not connect to any sensitive networks, what she found made her forget about sleep entirely. Pages and pages of historical records. Images of alien worlds, some beautiful, some terrifying. Documentation of species she had never heard of. And at the end, a simple note. My name is Vex Toril. I am a historian of the Galactic Council. What I am sending you is the truth about what the Council has done. Please verify it. Please share it. The galaxy needs to know. Una spent 3 days verifying the data. She cross-referenced it with information from humanity's spy probes. She analyzed the documents for signs of forgery or manipulation. She consulted with linguists who could read the ancient languages in which some records were written. Everything checked out. On the 4th day, she requested an emergency meeting with President Lim. The president's office was quiet when Una arrived. President Lim sat behind her desk, looking tired. The blockade was taking its toll on everyone, even those who refused to show it. Dr. Bay, the president said, "Your message said this was urgent." "Yes, Madam President." Una placed a datapad on the desk. "I received information from a source inside the council. A historian named Vex Toril. What she sent us changes everything." Lim picked up the datapad and began to read. As she did, her expression changed from tired to alert to horrified. 200 species, she whispered. Over 200 civilizations, all destroyed, Una confirmed. Not absorbed, destroyed. Their worlds were stripped of resources, their populations were eliminated, and their histories were erased from council records, as if they never existed at all. Why? Because they refused integration, just like we did. Una's voice was heavy. The council's first approach is always peaceful. Gifts, trade, cultural exchange. But when a species refuses, when they resist too strongly, the council has another option. One they never talk about. President Lim set down the datapad. Her hands were shaking slightly. How do we know this is real? It could be a trick. A way to manipulate us. I considered that. But the data matches our own intelligence too, precisely. Details that we gathered from probes match details in these records. Either this is real, someone went to incredible lengths to create a fake that perfectly aligns with information they should not have access to. Lim was silent for a long moment. Then she stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Seoul was bright with lights, millions of people going about their evening, unaware of the terrible secrets their government had just learned. If we release this, the president said slowly, the council will deny it. They will call it human propaganda. Yes, but the information includes coordinates, locations of destroyed worlds, mass graves, physical evidence that can be verified. Una stepped forward. We need to send ships. We need to document what we find. And then we need to show the galaxy the truth. That could start a war. The war has already started, Madam President. The Council just hasn't admitted it yet. 1 month later, a fleet of human exploration vessels jumped to coordinates scattered across the galaxy. They moved quickly and quietly, avoiding Council patrols. Following the map that Vex Toril had provided, Captain Shin Youngjai commanded the lead ship, the Ararong. He was an experienced officer, 45 years old, known for his calm under pressure, but nothing in his training had prepared him for what he found. The first world was called Varus 7 in the old records. It had once been home to a species called the Canari, insect-like beings who had developed spaceflight 2,000 years before humans learned to make fire. They had been artists and philosophers, known throughout the ancient galaxy for their beautiful songs and intricate sculptures. Now, Varus 7 was a dead rock. The atmosphere had been stripped away. The oceans had been drained. What remained was a gray wasteland, dotted with the ruins of cities that had once held billions of souls. Captain Shin walked through the rubble, his environmental suit protecting him from the toxic air, and found bones, millions of them, piled in great heaps like garbage. He recorded everything. The other ships were doing the same at other coordinates, finding the same horrors. World after world, species after species, all erased by the council that claimed to bring peace and unity to the galaxy. When the footage reached Earth, it was broadcast immediately. Every frequency, every language, every corner of human space saw the evidence. And then it was sent beyond, into council territory, into neutral space, into every communication network that human technology could reach. The galaxy saw the truth. On the council station, High Counselor Morith watched the broadcasts with something that might have been fear. His crystalline body rang with discordant tones as he called an emergency session of the High Chamber. Lies Ambassador Crix declared, "Human fabrications. We must respond immediately, condemn these silence." Morith's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. The coordinates are accurate. Our own ships have confirmed it. The evidence is real. The chamber fell deathly quiet. "How long have you known?" asked a young representative of the Filori species. His voice trembled with barely contained rage. "How long has the council hidden this?" "It was necessary," Morith said. "Some species cannot be integrated. Some must be removed for the greater good." "This has always been the way of murderers," the Filori representative interrupted. "The way of monsters." He turned and walked out of the chamber. Others followed. Within hours, 12 species had withdrawn their representatives from the council. Dozens more demanded immediate investigations into their own integration histories. The Galactic Council, the ancient power that had ruled the stars for millennia, was beginning to crack in her hiding place on a distant station. Vex Toral watched the chaos unfold and felt something she had not felt in centuries. Hope the humans had done what she could not. They had taken the truth and made it impossible to ignore. The lies were finally coming to light, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Galactic Council did not fall in a day. Empires that have ruled for millennia do not collapse so easily. But the cracks that humanity had exposed spread quickly, and no amount of denial could seal them. Within the first year after the revelations, 12 species formally withdrew from the council. They called themselves the Free Worlds Coalition, and their founding document was written in languages that their ancestors had almost forgotten. For the first time in generations, they were remembering who they had been before integration. But the old guard of the council did not accept defeat quietly. "High Counselor." Morith was removed from power. His crystalline body dimmed with shame and exile. But others rose to take his place. Beings who believed that the council's methods were justified, that peace required sacrifice, that unity demanded the elimination of those who would not conform. They called themselves the Preservers, and they had one goal: to silence humanity before more species began to question. The Preserver fleet gathered in secret, far from the eyes of the reformist factions that now struggled for control of the council. Thousands of warships, armed with weapons that had burned worlds to ash. Ancient vessels that had not seen battle in centuries. Their crews trained in the methods of extermination that the council had officially denied. Their target was Earth. Admiral Park Do-yeon received the intelligence report at 3 in the morning. He read it twice, then called an immediate meeting of the Defense Council. "They are coming," he said simply. "The largest fleet the galaxy has ever seen. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. The officers around the table were silent. They had prepared for this day. Preparation and reality were different things. Fleet Commander Yoon Saman was the first to speak. "Our forces are ready, Admiral. Every ship, every station, every weapon is at full operational capacity. We have been waiting for this." "Waiting is not the same as winning," Do-yeon replied. "The Preserver fleet outnumbers us 20 to 1. They have technology that we can barely understand. Our advantages are position and desperation. And stubbornness," added General Oh Jung-woo. "Do not forget our stubbornness." A few officers smiled grimly at that. President Lim Gyeon entered the room, followed by Dr. Bae Yuna and Intelligence Director Kwon Tai-woo. The president looked tired but determined, her eyes sharp despite the late hour. "I have been in contact with the Free Worlds Coalition," she said. "They cannot send military support in time. The reformist factions in the council are too weak to stop the Preservers. We are on our own." Then we face them alone, Doyan said. As we always knew we might. The president nodded. I've already drafted a message to be broadcast to the people of Earth. They deserve to know what is coming. And they deserve to know that we will not surrender, no matter the odds. 3 days later, the Preserver fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system. Their ships filled the darkness like a metal storm, blocking out the stars. Sensors counted them at over 8,000 vessels, each one carrying weapons capable of melting continents. The human fleet waited for them at the Kuiper line, the boundary of the outer solar system. 500 warships, gathered in precise formation, their crews silent and ready. Behind them, the defense platforms stood watch over the planets they had sworn to protect. Admiral Doyan stood on the bridge of the tieback, looking at the tactical display. The enemy fleet was vast, a river of death flowing toward everything he loved, but his voice was steady when he spoke.
Ow.
All ships, this is Admiral Park Doyan. The enemy has come to destroy us. They have come to silence us. They have come to erase us from history, just as they have erased so many others. He paused, letting his words reach every ship, every station, every soldier. But we are not like the others. We are not afraid of death. We are not afraid of pain. We are not afraid of anything the galaxy can throw at us. His voice rose. We are human. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. We fight until the last breath leaves our bodies, and then we fight some more. Across the fleet, crews cheered. Some cried. All of them stood a little taller. All ships, Doyan continued, engage at will. Show them what humanity is made of. The Battle of the Kuiper Line lasted 16 hours. It began with a rain of missiles and energy beams, turning the darkness of space into a storm of fire. Human ships darted and weaved through the enemy formation, smaller and faster than the massive council vessels, striking at weak points that the Preservers had never bothered to armor. They had not expected to fight. They had expected to destroy. They were wrong. Sergeant Ha Minseo commanded a squadron of strike fighters. Diving through the chaos with weapons blazing, she had trained for this moment her entire life, and now she was finally doing what she was born to do. Target the command ships, she ordered her pilots. Cut off the head, and the body will fall. Her squadron struck like a knife, slicing through escort vessels and slamming into the command cruisers that directed the Preserver fleet. One by one, the enemy commanders died, their coordination shattered. But victory came at a terrible cost. For every Preserver ship destroyed, 2 human vessels fell. The tieback itself took critical damage, half its guns silenced, its hull breached in a dozen places. Admiral Doyan refused to leave the bridge, commanding the battle from a chair stained with his own blood. As the hours passed, something strange began to happen. The Preserver formation, so confident at first, began to waver. They had expected an easy slaughter. They had not expected resistance this fierce. And then, at the darkest moment, when it seemed that humanity would be overwhelmed, new ships appeared on the sensors. They came from the direction of Council space, but they were not flying Council colors. Their hulls bore. The stars had always been silent. For thousands of years, humanity looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were symbols of species that had withdrawn from the Council. Peoples who had found their voices again after seeing what the ESE Preservers truly were. The Free Worlds Coalition had come to fight. All ships. This is Commander Toral of the Coalition Fleet. The voice was familiar. Dr. Bayuna recognized it immediately. Vex Toral, the historian who had revealed the truth, was now leading a fleet of her own. We stand with humanity. Today, we all fight for freedom. The tide of battle turned. Caught between the human defenders and the coalition attackers, the Preserver fleet shattered. Ships that had expected to burn a world instead fled into the darkness, pursued by fighters who gave no mercy. When the battle ended, the Kuiper line was a field of debris. Thousands of ships had died there, human and alien alike. But Earth survived. Humanity survived, and the galaxy would never forget what they had done. 1 year later, President Lim Gian stood before a gathering unlike any in history. Representatives of the Free Worlds Coalition filled the hall. along with observers from dozens of species still technically part of the Council. They had come to Geneva, to Earth, to witness the birth of something new. "We did not ask for this war," the president said. "We asked only to be left alone, to determine our own future, to remain who we are. But when the galaxy refused to let us live in peace, we fought, and we won." She looked out at the assembled beings, so different from each other, yet united by a common cause. The Council believed that unity required uniformity, that peace required submission, that all species must become the same to live together. "Ash!" She shook her head. "We reject this. True unity does not require us to forget who we are. True peace does not require us to give up our freedom. True cooperation can only exist between equals who choose partnership freely, without coercion or fear." She gestured to the beings behind her. "Representatives of the Free Worlds Coalition and humanity standing together. To those who wish to walk this path with us, we offer friendship. Real friendship based on mutual respect and shared purpose." Her eyes hardened. "And to those who still believe in the old ways, who still think they can erase anyone who disagrees with them, we offer a warning. We will not be erased. We will not be forgotten. And if you come for us again, you will find us ready." The hall erupted in applause and strange sounds that served the same purpose for species, without hands to clap. In the back of the hall, Admiral Park Do-yin stood with Fleet Commander Yoon So-min. His wounds had healed. Mostly, though, he would carry scars for the rest of his life. He did not mind. Scars were proof that you had survived. "Do you think it will last?" So-min asked quietly. "This coalition? This new order?" Do-yin considered the question. "I do not know. Nothing lasts forever. But for now, we have shown the galaxy something it had forgotten." "What is that?" He smiled slightly. "That some things are worth fighting for, and some species are too stubborn to die." Outside the hall, the sun was setting over Geneva, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Across the solar system, on stations and ships and colonies, humans were looking up at the stars. The stars were no longer silent. The stars were full of voices, old and new, singing together for the first time, and humanity, the species that had refused to kneel, was among them forever.